Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. Today I'm chatting with Tracy Hill from Crystal Lake Golf Club. Tracy is a wonderful planner and a very hands-on event coordinator. Tracy has been tuning into our podcast for the past few months and is an active listener. We were honored when she mentioned she wanted to be a guest. She commented on our Facebook page when we released the episode with Scott Connery, which, by the way, if you haven't tuned in, it's episode 17 for those who want to listen. She felt that Scott's episode really resonated with her and is what prompted her to reach out to be our guest. So here we are today. Tracy and I really feel she has some great tips to unveil for you in this episode that will help you with your wedding planning no matter where and when you're getting married. We are honored to have her as a guest. When I asked Tracy what she wanted to chat about, she said she really wanted our listeners to understand why it's important to be prepared and ready for your vendors, along with having vendor meetings before your big day. So we would be unveiling the secrets and tips on how to prepare for your detail and final appointments with your vendors. We will, of course, have some fun inside tips and stories from behind the scenes of planning your big day. Do you even know where to start and how to prepare for your wedding detail appointments with your vendors? Do you feel organized or do you feel overwhelmed in your planning? Well, if you answered yes to any of these questions, this is the podcast show for you. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Tracy. Well, welcome, Tracy. How are you today?
Happy New Year, Sarah and Dan.
I know. It's a new year, new beginnings, right?
Yay.
Finally.
We're getting 2021 behind us.
I know. I love it.
I do too.
Well, with that said, Tracy, I would love for you to tell our listeners who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Sure. So my name is Tracy Hill. I've worked for the past 18 years for a golf course called Crystal Lake Golf Club in Mapleville, Rhode Island, which is northern Rhode Island, right on the border of Massachusetts and Connecticut. We are a country club that has an 18-hole golf course, and our beautiful function room is set right on the shores of Crystal Lake. We have a lakefront gazebo that we offer ceremonies at. We do offer boat rides from the clubhouse to the ceremony spot for our couples. And then we also offer beautiful antique car rides as well, too. My boss has a fleet of antique cars that he uses for transportation for weddings. We probably do about 65 to 70 weddings a year. We also offer golf tournaments, baby showers, bridal showers, anniversary parties, birthday parties, anything you can think of. We have a full pro shop, and we also have a tavern, which is open to the public. Just started doing breakfasts on Sunday mornings, really delicious, so we'd love to see everybody out there.
Wow, so you guys really have it all.
We really do, yeah.
And I can't believe it's been 18 years.
I know. A long time.
You really are a staple there. Because I know a few weeks ago when we were preparing for the show, it was right before Christmas, and I asked you, a couple questions about what we want to talk about, and you were emailing me and you're saying, as I'm speaking, I'm wrapping gifts. Like, you just do everything. Planning a big event.
That day I did, Sarah, yes.
So planning big events and extravagant events with boat rides to, hands-on wrapping gifts for the employees.
Absolutely. We do it all. Whatever you have to do when you work at a small business. And it's a small family-owned business, very much mom and pop. But to see it grow the way it did over the past 18 years is actually amazing. We started off with 5 weddings back in 2004, and this year I think because it was such a big year, we did 80. So it's awesome to see how it's grown and how the golf course has matured, and met a lot of great couples over the ways, a lot of great families. So it's really cool.
I think that's really important to people to understand that it is a small mom and pop, because to be honest with you, I never knew that. I really didn't. All these years and all these times I worked there, I really thought it was a big corporation, because that's how organized it is. But at the same time, it's so personal to know that it is just a mom and pop business.
It really is. My bosses are Kevin and Cindy Bliss. Cindy sits in the desk right across from me, and Kevin's office is right off of our main office where all his women work in the office. And their sons are all involved in the business as well, too. So, yeah, it is really cool. Kevin, before he purchased Crystal Lake back in 2002, I think he developed it as a golf course. He was part owners with his father at Blissful Meadows in Uxbridge, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And then he decided to sell out of that business and come open up Crystal Lake and give it a try for himself. So
that could have a lot to do, obviously, with it's because of you too, but also too maybe just the whole vibe of why, at least I know Dan and I couples that we photographed there, they always have a special relationship with you. I've always known that. I've always seen it. Mm-hmm. And so that could be a lot. I mean, obviously it has a lot to do with you, but I bet you it's just the overall feeling that they get when they walk in there.
It is one of the selling points I always use with, showing the room and showing the club, is that when you walk in, you don't get that really stuffy country club feel. It's more of like walking into somebody's big living room. It's very comfortable. The golf course itself, or the function room itself, has a mix of that kind of rustic vibe, but it does have a little bit of that country club elegance as well, too. So I think that's why we appeal to so many brides. We try to keep our prices moderately priced, just based on the area that we are in. And, I to a fault, sometimes I get to know these couples so well, and then your Facebook feed is filled afterwards, after the wedding, with, babies, and I bought a new house, and look at our new dog, and I just graduated from school, and, it's so cool to connect with these people that way. And, yeah, I really do feel like it goes beyond just me, because my staff is so good, with taking care of these couples and getting to know them. Even if it's just after they have a meeting with me, they go down and sit at the bar and they have a drink afterwards, and they get to know the bartender in there or the server in there. So, yeah, I think it gives off that really cool family vibe.
I think it's wonderful, too. I do know that the handful of couples that I've photographed there, we stay in touch. Dan and I always stay in touch with our couples. Dan and I don't do as many weddings as your venue does. I mean, we do about 40 a year, but those 40 couples are very important to us. But what I have noticed is when I stay in touch with a couple, doesn't mean that they always stay in touch with their venue. But right. All of my couples that I photographed with you stay in touch with you, because I'll see myself comment on something, and then I'll see you comment, and you have the same relationship that I do with them.
I can think of one particular couple, yes. that I see. Now it's more on social media, but it was a couple that we had in common, and I just love hearing from them and what they're doing and where their life is going. I just think it's really cool. So they're
a great couple. I actually, by the way, ran into them in Disney World.
No, you did
not.
Yes,
I did. So
that's great.
She posted on social. So I was it 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. She posted on social media that she was in Disney, and I messaged her. I'm like, I'm in Disney. So we met up.
Really?
Yes, we did. So we spent like a couple of hours. Like, I had my girls with me, so she came with us to see them, like see the princesses. And he's obviously big into Star Wars, mm-hmm. So we went over there with them, and then and then we had lunch, and then we all went our separate ways.
That's fantastic. Yep. Yeah, they are one couple that after their wedding, about a month later, after the honeymoon and everything, they came back and we had dinner together in the tavern, and it was just really cool.
I saw that.
I love making that connection with my couples. I really do, because hey, you know what? You can't have enough friends in this world.
No,
so.
And that's actually brings us back to what we want to talk about today,
mm-hmm.
because I know that you said to me you really wanted to stress the importance of meeting with your vendors and preparing and you want to get to know your couples and have your couples get to know you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you want to talk about today?
Absolutely. So I think what resonated with me from that last podcast with Scott Connery is, when I heard him talk and I was hearing him say things, I'm driving in the car saying, yes, yes, yes. I so agree with that. And I know it makes me such a wedding nerd. But you know what? When you've done this I think I've been at this for like 25 years now, you have to be passionate about what you do. And honestly, I think when you hire good vendors, what everybody wants to see is that the end product is perfect. So I think what I really wanted to talk about today is just helping you be prepared to meet with your vendors. I think a good vendor is somebody that is willing to spend some time and put time aside for you. I know a lot of DJs, a lot of photographers will put out worksheets, and a lot of it's online now, and that's really cool. But I am a vendor that likes to meet with my couples at least 3 times prior to the wedding, which I know seems so time-consuming and a lot to some venues. But I just think it's really important to gain that trust in me. I can meet with my couples and see, what their whole plan is for this wedding, what their vision is. And then on wedding day, it's easy. You come, you get your picture taken, you enjoy your family, you eat, you drink, you have fun, and I'm going to take care of all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I want to know you so well that in the end, if there's a question or a problem that comes up, I can say, so-and-so wants it like this. I don't even need to talk to them about it. I know that this is how they want it. They said this to me at their meeting, and this is important to them. And that's where I want it to be on the wedding day. So wedding day is easy and seamless, and there's nothing to worry about. So I think when listening to Scott, I thought to myself, this year especially has been a year where so many couples have either missed meetings with me or, we're get down to that final meeting and they're just not prepared for me. When I have a final meeting with my couples, I like them to drop off all their decor. We go over the menu, the timeline. They make their final payment. We go over that final bill. We just kind of talk about everything. We confirm ceremony details. And I've had so many couples come to me this year and say, I don't have everything for this last meeting. Can I drop it off on Friday? And, you never want to be that tough one and say, no, you can't do that. You got to do it now. So it's fine that they drop it off on Friday. But on Friday, I'm involved with somebody else's wedding, and I can't give you that attention that I can give you at the meeting. So I think that was one point that I wanted to get across today is that if the vendors are good vendors and they're taking the time to want to meet face-to-face with you or talk to you over the phone, they have worksheets and timelines, meet those timelines. It's really important.
That's a really good point, Tracy, because one of the things I know, and I'm sure you're going to talk about what you do, and but one of the things that Dan and I do is we do have worksheets, and we have certain calls now. It used to be for me in person, but I've learned that at least with photography, because it's so visual, and because that we can share visuals through email, yep. A lot of my stuff now is over the phone because I can visually show people through email what we do and what we're talking about. But right. For you, obviously, it's very important to be in person because you're dealing with space, yep. And you're dealing with a visual of the space that you can't obviously floor plans and things you just can't do always over the phone. So, but it's interesting you bring that up because it's so important. So I have a worksheet. I have one worksheet that I need people to fill out before their final detail appointment, and I can't have it the night before. I have to have it so I can digest it and understand it. And you talked about something that for our listeners I think is so important is that when you hire, there's so many vendors out there, so many venues, so many vendors, but when you hire the right vendors in every single category, those people don't even have to ask you certain things they already know. Mm-hmm. So it's less on that day and less throughout the entire year or 2 years that you're planning that you have to be, quote unquote, bothered.
Right.
So before we kind of get into how to prepare, because for people who are listening right now, they're wondering well, what can they do to prepare for this? Mm-hmm. You mentioned that a lot of people this year were not being prepared. Why do you think that was this year?
The only thing I can actually come up with on that is I heard a lot of people say to me, because a lot of my couples this year, as other vendors know, were 2020 couples that rescheduled to 2021. And when they made the decision to reschedule from 2020 to 2021, they said to me, we just put it away and didn't think about it. And I think I can understand that in a way because, when we first went into lockdown, it was 1 month. And we thought, June, July, we'll be fine. But then it got to June, July, and we weren't fine. So I think for a lot of those couples, they thought, is this even going to happen at this point? So I know a lot of them said to me, we just put it away and we honestly didn't think about it, Tracy, until you called us the other day and said, hey, we need to start thinking about it. So I think maybe that was one reason. I really don't know.
Maybe it's just the mental exhaustion. Mm-hmm. Is that, we've all, we're in a new year now, so it's a fresh year. So for people who are listening, maybe those people who are getting married right now and you're listening, maybe you kind of just like train your mindset to be like, this is the year. This is my year, and I'm going to start focusing on something that makes me happy. Because I think you're right. I think the day of was exciting, but I think a lot of these couples, we all have society. It's just mentally exhausted.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that.
So now it's a new year, and, we have couples listening to us. What is some like little nuggets that you can give them? Like, take us through the process of how to prepare for these meetings, especially from what you see with you and also to what you've seen with other vendors, because you do see your couples deal with all the vendors of their wedding day.
Mm-hmm, I do. Oh, speaking for myself, like I said before, I do a 6-month meeting, a 3-month meeting, and a 1-week meeting. In preparation for your 6-month meeting, what I'd like you to have a good idea of is how many people you think you've got coming to your wedding. Just a general number. I know that you haven't sent invitations out yet, but you need to have some kind of estimate of how many people are coming. I would like you to have some idea of what your menu is going to be, because my venue has food, and we like to get you to have some idea what you want to serve, because that's what we're going to talk about at our first meeting. At your 6-month meeting, I would love you to have all your vendors booked, and I'd love vendor contact information. I think that's really important for me to have. Sometimes I do reach out to new vendors that have never been to Crystal Lake before the wedding, just to say, hey, what's up? And, this is our policies here, and so on and so forth. And then I would love you to walk in with a list of questions that you have for me. I think email is great. And I have no problem. When you book your wedding 2 years in advance, I always say, I'm just an email away. Email me. But I think when you get face-to-face and you see somebody's reactions and, I can tell you how it's played out at other weddings or what we plan to do here at Crystal Lake for certain things, I think it makes a big difference. I think a face-to-face meeting is and being able to see somebody's reaction makes a big difference in the answering of the question. So those are basically what I like to have done at the 6-month meeting. When you move into the 3-month meeting, what I like to do is just finish our worksheet that we're filling out together. I want to have you have all your ceremony information done by then, like who is the lineup, who's walking with who's escorting who down the aisle. And then obviously by the final meeting, it's final details. Everything needs to be done. So at that meeting, we're just basically reviewing what we've already planned. Please don't walk in and change everything, because at 7 days before your wedding, it really makes it hard to change details, when you're staffing and ordering food and timelines and things like that. So
maybe the takeaway for people is, especially when it comes to your venue, when you're within that, like, correct me if I'm wrong, 3-month, 1-month mark, you shouldn't be changing big items. I mean, granted, you're going to get your final guest count.
Sure. Right.
But other than that, it shouldn't be big items being changed. It should just be fine-tuning.
Exactly. Just little details. Yep, absolutely.
What about somebody that because you have like two types of people. You have the people that, there's multiple types of people, but there's two big groups, which is someone who's super organized and want to do everything too far. Sometimes I feel it too far in advance. And then you also have the people who are not so organized. So I would like to help both types of people today. Right. So let's talk about the people who are very organized and want to, let's talk about the pros and cons of wanting to try to plan things too far in advance.
Sure. Yeah. What I would say to those people is, don't come into that first meeting with everything so set in stone that you can't open your eyes to see other little details that you may have missed. So come into that meeting with an open mind, and let me do my thing. Let me organize my thing the way I need to organize it. So then maybe we can see if you did miss something, or maybe something that you've made a decision about might not be the best decision, and, just have an open mind about it. I would say that to the people who are unorganized or feel like they don't have everything all together, also come in and listen with an open mind as well, too. Let me help mold you or push you in a certain direction.
Yeah, sometimes I feel, too, that, every vendor has a process. So you have to kind of trust their process. And so basically what you're saying is just follow along, not follow along, but almost respect the process. Yes. and that they have lined out because they've been doing it for so long.
100%. I think that's one of my points too, is that if the vendor reaches out to you and has a certain process, a timeline, a worksheet, a final meeting, trust that process. If they're asking those questions, it's for their benefit. Do I need that second shooter? Do we need more hors d'oeuvres at cocktail hour? And they're asking you this and suggesting you this for a reason. Trust it.
So as a venue coordinator who clearly is very hands-on, you basically take everybody through the process. It sounds like you have worksheets for them to fill out. You want them to have questions. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that it's more beneficial for people to just have all their questions at once, or is it okay for them to, you think, emailing you throughout the whole process?
I think emailing throughout the whole process is absolutely fine. I think, again, that's also what builds the trust in, that person you've hired, just to feel comfortable enough to just shoot over a quick question. I think that's absolutely fine.
Now, how about people who may be listening that, they're hearing what you do or what I do with these couples, but maybe their vendors aren't doing this? I'm just wondering, what some tips that you can give them that, if they have, for example, a vendor that they're trying to reach out to and they're not hearing back. I mean, what is some tips? I can tell you, at least for me, there's a lot of things that you brought up something. I guess you brought up something that was really important, and it's the fact that you designate certain times for certain weddings. So you're doing 70 weddings, but each wedding is very important. So when you have a meeting with somebody, it's important to stick to that meeting, because then afterwards you are giving your all to somebody else. So I think it's important maybe for people to understand that just because they're maybe not hearing, well, there's a difference. Hold on. There's a difference with not hearing back from somebody versus maybe that person's not giving them that meeting right away. Right. That's what I mean by that. Meaning, if you're not hearing back from your vendor, that's a red flag. Right. If you're emailing them and you're not hearing back from them, or they're not calling you back, yes, that to me is a red flag. So, find another means of communication. Maybe pick up the phone if you're emailing them, or if you're calling them, maybe email them. But if you're hearing back from them and they're telling you, we will cover this at this meeting or fill out the sheet, there's reasons, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I want to touch upon what those reasons are.
That is correct. Yes. And I've had many couples say that to me when we get down to that, maybe that 1 month mark, and they're like, it's September and I'm reaching out to my DJ and he hasn't gotten back to me. I said, well, have you had your meeting? Have you filled out your worksheet? And if it's yes to both of those questions, then I say just be patient, because it is September. And September is the busiest time of year for all vendors. So at some points, you have to give them a little bit of a break and just say, okay, I know you're busy with another couple or getting another event out, but this question is important to me. And, if you're emailing on a Thursday or a Friday or a Saturday, expect that they probably won't get back to you till Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, just because they're human and they need that one day to recover from the weekend and go ahead and start again.
That's a good tip. That's a good one. Most of us wedding professionals, people have to understand that for them, a weekend is their time to plan. For us, we're working. Correct. So I always say that if you email, like you said, any time between Thursday night and Tuesday, it's okay that you don't hear back right away. Correct. In the wedding industry.
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes I have had extreme cases where people are just at wit's end and they haven't been able to contact their vendor, for whatever reason. I'm always happy to reach out on their behalf. And sometimes that helps, to call a hotel because we haven't heard about a hotel block, and just reach out to the sales manager or to a DJ or a justice of the peace. But that very rarely happens. And I think that goes back again to what you said before too, Sarah, this is why it's so important to hire quality vendors.
That's kind of where I was going. I know I was rambling. I just didn't want to. I know it, at least me, I don't go dark on anybody. But there are certain times where I tell people, I can't answer those questions right now. And it's not because I'm busy. I mean, obviously I'm busy, but it's because we're not at that point yet. Because, for example, at least with me, a lot of times people will ask me, like, well, what time should I have my hair and makeup done by? I can give them a range,
right?
But I don't know that yet until we basically had the worksheets filled out. I know how many bridesmaids. Yeah. I know if we're doing a first look or not. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a domino effect. Right. So maybe for the listeners is check your vendors and check if any of them have worksheets. Mm-hmm. Fill out the worksheets.
Correct.
And then maybe the other tip would be ask them what their process is. So that way, like, everybody has like maybe their binder, or maybe they have a folder, or a document. But maybe what you do is organize it where you have each vendor and like what that vendor needs for you and when.
Correct.
For you, it's 3 months,
yep.
6 months,
and a week before. Yeah. And that worksheet that I give out to my couples, it's something, and this is a control thing with me, but it's something we fill out together. So it's not just them guessing what's going to happen. It's us talking about what's going to happen and deciding on a time frame, amounts of things, vendors that are showing up, things like that. So after every meeting I have with my couples, I take a copy of that, or I email it to them just so they have it. So then when they sit down with their photographer, they can say, oh, well, Tracy said cocktail hour is 5:45 to 6:45. So she's giving us till 6:45 to get our, pictures taken. Or Tracy said that we can come on site at 2:00 and do our first look. Or, intros are right at 7:00. So that's when the DJ should be out in the hall lining us up. So, I think if it starts with one and you're well informed with one, even though I may not know what you want to do with your day as the photographer, they can say, well, Tracy said this. Let's compare it to what you have.
It's really important, actually, because the venue, you're right. It starts at the top and it works its way down. And every one of us needs certain information at a certain timeline. So, like you said, if you have a venue like yourself that you're working with, that you trust, that you have a great communication with, it's going to help every other venue that you deal with. I know with me, a lot of times where I can't answer certain questions so far in advance is I need your information first.
Exactly. Yeah.
I need to know when the cocktail hour is first. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't say what time the first look is going to be until we know where you're getting married. Are you getting married on site or at a church? There's just different timelines. So maybe, I guess the takeaway for right now is, for people who are listening, is have everything organized per venue and know what each vendor needs from you and when, and do them.
Correct. Yeah.
I do know. I was speaking with Dan and I had an August wedding. And I was the videographer. I'm not going to mention who the videographer is. He has been a guest here. He called me up and he was like, Sarah, have you heard from this couple? And I said, no. I said, I've heard from the mother. And I did. Basically, the mom filled out the sheet, and the mom did. And there's nothing wrong with moms doing that. Mm-hmm. But it really needs to be the couple, because there's some personal questions. So basically, long story short, like, the videographer didn't even know. And this is a very well-respected. He's in contact with his couples. He needs this just like you for his work.
Correct.
And he didn't even know if he was doing bridal prep. Like, if he's showing up at the ceremony, the bridal prep, and they were spending good money on him.
Correct, yeah.
Good money.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he was just like, how am I going to deliver this product to them when I don't even know what's going on? And he's like, you know what? They're lucky I've been doing this for X amount of years. I'm going to go and just wing it.
Right.
But it was he had to call me up to ask me certain questions, because the worksheet was filled out by the mom and there was like questions blank.
Right.
Because it's personal questions that the mom probably didn't know what the bride's answer was.
Of course not. And of course we all know when your mom tries to plan a wedding as opposed to when you try to plan a wedding. Mom got married back in the 80s and the 90s, and it's so different now. It's just a whole different beast when you come back in 2021. Wedding is so different from the 90s. So, I love the parents. I love the parents when they come in, but always the first meeting is always so filled with, well, this is what we did back then. I'm like, okay, it's changed. We got to take a breath and we're going to, we're going to do something. Yeah. And you know what? Back then, to their defense, if you're somebody who got married in the 80s and the 90s, I got married in the 90s. We didn't do it like this. It wasn't like this at all. You just kind of showed up and, hope for the food to be good and the DJ was good or the band was good. So it was a lot different. And a lot of them had their mothers planning for it back then too.
And you know what, though? Like, we all have our process. Like, you just said to me that you like to meet in person at, 3 months, 6 months, and a week. I know for me, we have our final detail appointment. It's via phone because I'm in front of my computer with the worksheet that they filled out.
Correct.
And I want them to fill out our worksheet at least a week in advance from my meeting because I need to digest it. I have so many people give it to me the night before, and I literally ask them and I tell them, please don't do it the week before. Yeah. I mean, sorry, the night before. I need it the week before. It doesn't help me. Yeah. So we all have our policies. So it's just a matter of people. If you're not an organized person, or if you are an organized person, just take this tip. You probably have a folder and you have everything that you want and your needs, but just find the timelines that people need for each vendor. So that's like just so important. Figure out what each vendor wants and the timeline of when they need it. Because I know for us, we get to know our couples at our engagement photo shoots. Right. So I have that. I don't need any meetings other than the final meeting.
Correct, yeah.
I'm an email, phone call away. But for me, it's that final detail. So, and you have 3 meetings. So every vendor's different. You have to just figure out what they need and stick to it.
Correct. I mean, I feel maybe sometimes even 2-3 meetings may be overkill. But again, I like that trust building with me. But I don't know how many times.
I don't think so. Not to interrupt you, but it's not. Because think about, like, for me, I'm meeting with them 3 times. I had their photo shoot. Right. And I'm picking out pictures and talking to them. So I'm already doing that. Right. So for you, who's planning that one day, it's not overkill.
No, I find in the end it isn't, because it's well worth it in the end, because I have happy customers. And that's basically what the end prize is for all of us anyways. But I just, what moved me so much to talk about this year is that I don't know how many times I was in the hall outside of the function room at Crystal Lake getting ready to introduce a couple, and I look over towards the door, and there's my couple from Saturday night carrying in their centerpieces, and I'm like, I just can't give you that attention right now, and I'm sorry. And I think most people understand that, but it's not the way I like to do things. Right. You know what I mean? And I think the point is that if you hire good people and they give you their time, let's sit and have a face-to-face. Take advantage of that time. Use it to your advantage, because it can be so stress-free in the end, by just, getting it all out on the table at one of these meetings, whether it's a phone call, a video chat, a face-to-face meeting, rather than, well, geez, I don't know. We didn't talk about that, and just kind of wondering on your wedding day.
Yeah, and also too, you talk about a little bit about hiring the people you trust. I know a lot of people hire event planners.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm sure you work with event planners, like outside event planners. Not. Yep. I mean, you're the event,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
I can say that there's a point when someone wants to hire them to relieve the pressure.
Yep. Yep.
But there's also certain things. We talked about the mom filling out worksheets.
Exactly.
There's certain things that sometimes I feel a good event planner won't do this. But again, you can't create the barrier. Meaning there's certain things I need to speak to my couples about. Right. The actual person that's in front of my camera. Right. I can't have the wedding coordinator filling out the worksheet, at least for me. Right. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not other vendors. So again, it's just communicating and asking your vendors what they need from you. Right. I don't know how you feel about that. Like when you have an outside wedding coordinator come in, it sounds like to me you still want to speak to, you fill out the sheet with your couple.
I would like to do that. I mean, at Crystal Lake, we don't get a lot of outside wedding coordinators come in. When we do, we've had some great ones come in over the years, but we don't get a lot of that. But still, usually with my couples, I do like to sit down with my couples themselves. And, I want to get a feel for how their day's going to go. And, and I like to have that connection with them just so we know, everything is good. They're happy. But, it is nice when they do hire an outside coordinator, only because, for some couples, they just really need that extra organization. So, yeah.
Yeah, but you still, though, sit down and fill out the sheets with your couple.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So that, that's what I'm saying. It's that sometimes having an outside person can help you with so many things. But there's, again, it comes back down to what does your vendors need from you?
Exactly.
Well, with that, Tracy, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and then I want to talk about some stories.
Okay. That
Yes.
sounds good.
I mean, we have 18 years experience over here.
do.
Some stories.
Oh, we swap war stories all the time, Sarah.
All right.
All right.
I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Well, welcome back, podcast friends. So before the break, Tracy, we were talking a little bit about why it's important to prep for your vendors and your vendor meetings and setting expectations and figuring out what they need from you. But I did say let's swap some war stories a little bit. You have one daughter engaged, and you have another one you just married off in COVID.
Oh, yeah.
You were the mother of the bride.
Yep, I was.
And you just told me you're going to be a grandmother.
I am in May 5th. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great day.
It is Cinco de Mayo.
I love it.
I do too.
I had May babies, and I'm a May baby, so very unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
May people are very unique individuals.
We love those May people.
But how was it? Tell us a little bit about, marrying off your daughter in COVID and the process that we're actually talking about. How was it for her being on the other side and prepping for her vendors?
Well, that's a really good question because, being the mother of two daughters, of course, that's the first thing you always think when they're born is their wedding day and how special it is. And, now I'm in the business and, I constantly think about, what are my daughter's wedding days going to be like and, how's it going to be and the emotion and all of that with it. So, yes, when my oldest daughter got engaged, it was back in 2018.
You mean like when life was bliss?
When life, yes,
like very bliss.
When it was just going to be a regular wedding to plan.
Listen to this. I saw this sign and I shared it on my Instagram feed, and it was and I'd never seen this before. So, but I was like, ooh, this is a good one. It was like party. There was how you had those signs that when you go to a wedding and it's unplugged or,
yep.
Don't pick a side. Either, we're all family here. This one was like party like it was 2019. I was like, yes.
Back when life was good.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so I thought, oh, this is going to be a breeze. I've planned everybody else's wedding, thousands of weddings, and this is my daughter's wedding, and it's going to be fine. So, of course, my daughter being my daughter, she was not going to get married at Crystal Lake, and I was okay with that because, unfortunately for my kids, or maybe fortunately for them, I don't know, but when they turned 14, they were old enough to come to work with mom. So I think that's everybody's kid in the wedding business is, hey, we're short somebody tonight. Come on, you go stand in. So they've had their fill of weddings, needless to say. So my daughter planned it for 2020, August of 2020, at a different venue, which was very similar to my venue, but a different venue. It's a beautiful spot. Again, very similar to Crystal Lake. But I think it was, as Sarah and I were talking during the break, she wanted me to kind of share the story, of the differences in customer service in the different vendors that, in what they offer. And basically what you should probably be asking, along with how much does open bar cost and, how long do I get coverage for photography at my wedding? You should ask your vendors what the process is. And I know with my daughter, she was very detail-oriented. She knows a lot about weddings, as does, both my daughters.
Because they helped.
They've helped along
they
the
grew up around
yeah,
it.
They basically,
right.
yeah. If I was not feeling well, they'd step right in for me.
Right.
So I would say that at the venue that she went to, they were just the type of venue that it was, okay, we'll see you 6 weeks prior to the wedding. We'll do all our plans then, and you're good to go. I think what she was a little disappointed in is that there wasn't a whole lot of response on the venue's part beforehand.
Well, probably also, too, Tracy, is that she grew up watching what you do with your couples.
Mm-hmm.
And you're hands-on.
Correct.
You meet with people. You answer emails. You have 3 meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she just thought that that's what everybody does.
That's the norm every place else, yeah. And I think maybe she did. And, like Sarah was saying during the break when we were talking about this, is that if you're a hands-off person and if you're okay with meeting just 6 weeks prior to the wedding, then that's great. That works for you. I don't think that all venues that wait to do that final meeting with you or that one big planning meeting with you are bad venues. It's just if you're a person that, likes the details of the whole event, has a lot of questions, really likes that face-to-face attention, then that's probably something you should ask, along with how much does open bar cost and, what kind of color of linens do you offer at the wedding. So I think that was one takeaway that we got from all of that. I mean, as we got further in the process, all you 2020 couples know COVID hit, and her venue wasn't a venue that was offering any kind of either outdoor wedding or, offering weddings up to a certain amount of people. So she ended up actually canceling her wedding with them and coming to Crystal Lake. And, we accommodated her there and we had a blast. And it was a great event. And it was almost like bringing her home for Mom, just because, I loved having her there. And so much of both of my kids' lives have been spent there. So I knew that,
what's meant to be.
Right. The chef loved her, watched her grow up. All the wait staff were co-workers of her. My bosses were there and having a great time.
I mean, I can understand her wanting to think that she wanted to spread her wings and go somewhere else, but ultimately she ended up where she really should have been.
That's what she said. She said, my bridal shower was there, my graduation party was there. She's like, Mom, I guess it's just meant to be. I'm like, well, you can thank COVID for that. So,
but the takeaway from that is she didn't have the experience that she expected to have, and it was because for her it was the lack of communication.
Right.
And even though it wasn't the lack of communication, meaning the venue wasn't doing anything wrong. It's just that's what the expectations were for the venue. So we talked about, figuring out which each vendor needs from you. Correct. And being prepared for either phone calls or in-person meetings or worksheets. So for her, they only did one appointment, really.
Correct, right.
And that wasn't enough for her.
It wasn't. And I agree with you when I say that, because I don't want to make it seem like this venue that she went to. Of course, I would never name any names because that's not what we do in this business. I don't think they did a bad job because I've seen so many beautiful pictures and talked to so many people who've had successful weddings there. I just think for someone like my daughter who she does like that attention. She does like the details. She's a very organized person. She had very definite ideas about her wedding. Another venue, similar to what I do at Crystal Lake probably would have been, more suitable. But she ended up at Crystal Lake anyway.
So, there you go. And but the takeaway would be for people who are listening right now is when you are interviewing your vendors and venue,
correct,
maybe ask them what their customer service is.
Yeah.
I mean, flat out, that's just the question they should ask. Like, when will I hear from you? What to expect from you and me? And do you help me with timelines? Do you have worksheets? Do you have meetings?
Right.
Because you first started talking to me about how it's so important to be prepared for this. Right. I just had a final detail appointment myself just a couple of days ago, and the bride, as much as I love her, I do, and she sent me the worksheet the night before the call, and I didn't feel as prepared as I could. So it's fine. Our detail appointment, I got all the information I needed, but if I had it a week before, it would have been better. So she probably didn't keep track of what I needed, really.
Correct, yeah.
So,
right.
And I sent emails and I told her, but maybe that's what it needs to come down to is have like your schedules of what you need from each vendor.
Right. Give yourself a deadline, and the deadline shouldn't be 24 hours prior to your wedding.
Yeah.
Because, hopefully that night you're spending it at a rehearsal and then an enjoyable rehearsal dinner and then going to bed where all you have to do is wake up in the morning and worry about when we're getting hair and makeup done, when's the photographer coming, what time should I have my dress at, and when should I be at the venue? Things like that.
Tracy, I just got this weird memory that came back to me as I was talking to you. For my own wedding, there was, I remember the florist that I had at my wedding. It's funny, I forgot about this, but it just came back to me. I'm a very organized person. I knew what I wanted for my wedding, and I remember wanting to speak with my florist and like ironing out all the details too far in advance for what they needed from me.
Correct. Yeah.
And I remember having this feeling of like, oh, like it took the wind out of my sails a little bit. She didn't do anything wrong. I'm just saying that like I was like too over prepared and too far in advance. And I remember her saying, Sarah, we'll speak at X amount. And I forgot what it was. Maybe it was like a month out. And I walked away being like, oh, but I want to prepare it all. But not now, but I knew at the time it's just because it wasn't for her system yet, because she was dealing with the orders of June and July, and I was an August wedding.
Right.
So she wanted to deal with me in August. So again, it was like there was nothing that she did wrong. I just remember being the bride and being like, but I want to talk about it now.
Right. But she just wasn't ready to hear it.
She wasn't ready.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and I get that. And I do have couples like that who are asking me, can I have a floor plan, a month after they book, 18 months prior to the wedding? And I said, I can send it to you, but I really like to talk to you about this at our 6-month meeting. Let's hold off on that. And, I know you want to set up a floor plan. I know you want to think of where you want to sit, all your favorite aunts and uncles. But, let's stomp the brakes a little bit and, let's concentrate on something else right now. And we'll talk about that at the 6-month point.
Yeah, because sometimes it could just be redoing things over and over again that you're not ready yet. So again, it's just trusting the process with each of your vendors and making sure that you ask them what their customer service is, because if you're hands-on, you got to go see someone like Tracy.
100%. Come on down.
So Tracy, before we get into the wrap-up question, I think that for me, when I was listening to you, you brought up a lot of good points and that I didn't even think about, but at the same time, for me as a vendor, it's so important what you're saying, and I'm so happy that you wanted to talk about this, because I cannot stress enough how it really is important that our couples meet the expectations that we set for them, because therefore we can meet their expectations.
Correct. Yep.
But I really think it comes down to the people you hire.
I agree with that. I can't agree anymore. It's when I look at a sheet that I've filled out with a couple, and they've used my preferred vendors, or they used people I've worked with multiple times over the past 18 years, I look at it and say, wow, you've just made my life so much easier.
It's like a moment of sigh.
It is. You're like, okay, this is an easy day. This is going to be easy. This is going to be no problem at all. I know what I'm getting into. And it's funny, you think that all vendors are the same and they do everything alike. That couldn't be any more false. Every vendor is different. Their outcomes are always good. The good vendors, their outcome is always good. It's always a successful wedding with a happy couple. But hire good people. Plain and simple, if I can, say anything over and over again, I tell my daughters, they ask me who I should get. These are the good people. These are the good people. And they know them just as well as I know them, because they've worked with them over, so many years. But good vendors are not just vendors that perform great on the day. They're people that perform well beforehand. You've got good rapport with them. You feel like you can send them an email, pick up the phone with a quick question. They seem organized. They have the paperwork, the worksheets to fill out. So that kind of brings it full circle. You've got somebody good who knows what they're doing. They have a way they need to be organized in order to do their job well.
Tracy, it's one of those things where there's certain people in this industry that have a love and have a passion.
Correct, yeah.
And a lot of those people have been in it for years. Mm-hmm. There's a reason, because don't you see, like, you'll see, like, for example, a videographer, like, all of a sudden they're like the it videographer, and you see them on your sheet, and then all of a sudden, like 2 years later, they're gone.
They're just gone.
They're gone.
They're just gone. Yeah.
So, a lot of times I see that with venues.
Yeah.
Crystal Lake, I know as soon as someone tells me they're getting married there, I know they're dealing with you.
Yep.
But there's some venues that I don't even know who the sales rep are. Sometimes when I work with them, they have 3 or 4 sales reps.
Yes, correct.
So there's a lot of turnaround. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a ton of turnaround in our industry.
Correct.
So I'm sure a lot of people listening to us are nodding their head being like, oh, yeah, that's me. I've had like 3 or 4 different sales reps or something. Yep. Mm-hmm. But for someone like yourself, you've been in it for years, and there's a love. Like there's just if you get around you, there's a love, and then if you work at a wedding with you, you just love it.
I do.
There's a passion.
I do. And that's
something really special. Mm-hmm. So obviously the people that you refer are going to be the same type of people.
100%. Yeah.
And I think that, for people who are listening, if you've hired a venue that you love and the vendors that you love, maybe hate to say it, but I hate to say it because I'm not always on everybody's preferred vendor list. But
oh, mine.
But that's so great. But I think it's important to trust the people that you're working with. And if you are fortunate enough to work with someone like yourself, the venue's always the starting spot. That's your main venue and catering. Like if you have a tented wedding, that's a catering company. I think it really is important to go off of the preferred vendor list because it makes everybody's job easier.
I don't know how many posts I'll see on those wedding websites or the wedding pages on Facebook, and who did you use for your DJ, or who's this or who that, and all I want to do is type back in the comments, go to your venue and see who they refer. There's a lot of great people outside of their preferred vendors list, but honestly, if they're referring them, and I know I do this for myself, it's people that I've worked with and that I know that I can pick up the phone and have a phone call with, and we can work things out. I know that they've come to Crystal Lake, done what they need to do on the day. If it's a photographer or videographer, they come through with what they've promised. In the beginning, and it's also people that I know that are going to treat my couples the right way,
right, and also to treat them the way that you want to be treated.
Exactly,
you're very hands-on, and you want so therefore you want another vendor to be hands-on and not disappear on your couples.
Exactly,
because it's your love and name on the line too. So it's someone that has shown you time and time again that they don't just produce a beautiful arrangement or do a great service for them during their ceremony or do great pictures or great video. It's also to the whole package.
Right.
And I think that comes back down to what you've been saying. To get that whole package.
Correct. Yes.
The couple has to be prepared.
Right. Right. And I will say about the people on my preferred vendors list, I don't refer vendors that offer me cutbacks or special favors in return or anything like that. I personally don't like that. I think that's cheap. I'm just one person who has, a venue, and I want business. And the best way that one of my preferred vendors can repay me is by recommending my venue to them. And that's really all I want in return. And I want you to come and I want you to give a good service to my brides and grooms.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because there is a little small, behind the veil tip.
Yes.
That not every preferred vendor list is an honest one.
Correct.
I hate to say it, guys out there that's listening. I hate to say it, and we're not going to get into why or what venues, but sometimes there is certain things. I know I don't play that way.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't.
No.
There are certain places that the reason why the list is there is there's kickbacks happening.
Correct. Yeah.
I just think that does a disservice.
I think so too.
But I think you could probably sense that.
Yeah.
I think I hate to say I don't know how to help you guys who are listening because I'm not going to throw some places underneath the bus. But I can tell you that preferred vendor lists are so important, but not every place
is a face value on the vendor list.
But you know what, Tracy? How about this? You know what? If you have someone like yourself who's been in it for years and you meet with your couples and you help your couples, I mean, you are just not just their coordinator. I mean, you genuinely want to get to know them. Right. You can sense that the people that you're going to refer off are genuinely.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I think it comes back down to kind of like the story with your daughter. I mean, I'm not saying that venue is that way, but if you have a venue that is a little bit hands-off, or there's a lot of turnover, how do they know that those vendors are preferred? I don't know. I don't know how to give it away. I don't know how to help our listeners know that there's some lists that are. Well, but there are.
yeah, there definitely is. I mean, that is tough.
But yours aren't.
Mine isn't. No,
and that's all that matters.
And that's all that matters. I mean, you're correct, and I know that's so hard because you know what, but yours aren't. And you can generally just ask your venue. You can just ask them to say, why are these people on your preferred list? Right. And if they sit there and say exactly what you just said, these are people who I know are going to give you customer service. Correct. And there you go. Right. I think that's true. I think you could also say how long have you been working with this person? If they just got on the list, this past July, then it's something that you don't want to, venture into and maybe ask for somebody that they have more experience with. Also the other thing I think is so true of Rhode Island, because it's so small. Everybody knows a DJ. Everybody knows a photographer. So if you have that one person in your family that you trust who is a wedding professional, go to them and ask them. It doesn't always have to be your venue if you're not feeling anybody on their preferred vendors list, but ask that one person that you trust. Not to get off topic and go into, wedding vendors and who you should pick and so forth. But what I always say to my couples is, when you're interviewing a vendor and it's somebody that nobody knows, this is just somebody you found somewhere, take the time and go meet with them. If you have a 45-minute conversation with this person and you absolutely can't stand this person at the end of 45 minutes, don't hire them. Yeah. Because on your wedding day, everything is so heightened. You're nervous. You're stressed out. There's anxiety. You're happy. You're sad. That one person who bothered you for 45 minutes when you started planning your wedding is going to completely disgust you on your wedding day, and you're going to hate them by the end of the wedding day. So you want to hire somebody that you have a good feeling about as well, too. You want to look at their credentials. You want to see, what the experience is. If it's a photographer, you want to see their work. If it's a DJ, you may want to talk to other couples who've had them, so on and so forth. But, don't hire anybody because that girl on the Facebook wedding page said, it's a $500 DJ, and he was just fantastic, because, nothing good comes for free. You know what, though, too, Tracy? There's so many different people out there. Like, we talked a little bit about, there's some venues that one meeting is all that they need, and if that's right for them, that's right for them. I would like to think a lot of people who are listening to this podcast really has embraced the ring that's on their finger, or the father that's walking down their aisle, or their bride and their daughter down the aisle, or maybe it's another wedding professional. It's someone who has the passion. Correct. They're taking the time to listen to some tips. I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah. So obviously, I think the listeners that are out there are going to feel the passion from the vendors like yourself out there. I mean, if you sit with Tracy for 5 minutes, the passion. So therefore, that's why you've been doing this for so many years, and you have to, hire people that you trust and they trust. But prepare for your meeting. 100%. Prepare for your meeting. I don't know how Sarah and I got off track with that, but hey, we can sit here and talk about weddings all day long. Oh yeah, we can. But with that said, though, that's the wrap-up question. Let's help them prepare for that meeting. Absolutely. So with that said, Tracy, the wrap-up question, what are some key points that couples should be asking their vendors and venue to make sure that they are preparing for their details appointment, and make sure that they are giving their vendors and venue what they need and expected from them? So I think a couple of the points that I came up with prior to this meeting that, would help answer that question is, when you first go and look at a venue, I think a good question to ask would be, what are you like in the planning process? Do you have a worksheet for me to fill out? How many times do we meet? Are you open to phone calls and emails outside of those times that we've planned to meet? And then you have to kind of reflect on yourself and say, you know what, do I need that attention? Am I nervous about planning this wedding? Do I have a lot of questions? Because if it's somebody who's willing to talk to you even outside of those meetings, then that's probably the vendor that you should hire, or the venue that you should go with. So their customer service. Customer service, sure it matches. Exactly. What's the customer service? What you're longing for in your planning and your journey. Because exactly. Especially with the venue coordinator, they're going to be with you for a year, sometimes 2 years. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. You'll be seeing them. Secondly, the whole point of my call into Sarah for this podcast would be, if you have hired the venue or the certain vendor, just make sure that you trust their process, what they need from you as far as information, at meetings. Like I said before, I do the 6-month, the 3-month, the 1 week before meeting. Go to those meetings. Be prepared for those meetings. If it's somebody says, by the 3-month meeting, I need all this information, then go to that meeting and be prepared for it. If your photographer says, I need your worksheet 2 weeks prior to your wedding, then get it to her 2 weeks prior to your wedding. It's just so important, if they've planned this either, sit-down time with you or, the time to fill out information together, take advantage of that because I think it's really helpful in the end. And the third point that I wanted to bring up is that if you have hired a vendor and they're a good vendor and you really trust them and you've taken the time to go to the meetings and you've asked questions and they've asked you questions and, everything seems to be down on paper and all the details are final, trust the process. Trust it in the end. Just know on wedding day that that's why you've hired that person and, trust their lead. They've done this a lot more than you have. And if they've gotten all your information and taken the time to get to know you, then your wedding day is going to be perfect in the end.
Well, thank you, Tracy, for joining me on this week's episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled. You helped our listeners become one step closer in their journey of a stress-free wedding planning process. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Tracy Hill. I'm the wedding coordinator at Crystal Lake Golf Club. We're on 100 Broncos Highway, Mapleville, Rhode Island, Northern Rhode Island, Route 102. Phone number is 401-567-4500, extension 14. My direct email is Tracy, Tracy, at crystallakegolfclub.com. But we also have a website, which is just www.crystallakegolfclub.com. I am on Facebook, Crystal Lake Weddings and Events, and I'm also on Instagram, Crystal Lake Weddings and Events. We do have a golf course page that everybody gets confused with, but if you go to the Weddings and Event page, you'll get a lot more information about your wedding or event.
And for our listeners, I will have Tracy's information on our episode show notes where you can find on our blog, on our website page at sarahzarella.com/podcast. And also, too, for our listeners, if you want event coordinator that's going to be like your bestie after your wedding, it's Tracy. Because I could tell you, she's on Instagram and Facebook, but it's her. She's on it. And she is in touch still with, I know, our past clients.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're all there.
Yeah.
I get some that are like, see my kid who just graduated from high school, and I'm like, oh my.
Well, maybe they'll be your next
my next client. I don't know about that, Sarah, but.
Well, thank you, Tracy, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sarah and Dan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.